Hey everyone, Scott Davenport here. Welcome to In Post. Thanks for joining me today. Really quick, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, I'd appreciate it if you did. That's one of the ways you can tell me that you're enjoying the content. Simple subscribe is all you got to do, and I hope that you do it. So let's talk about today's photo. It's going to be like a photo teardown. I'm going to go through the major steps that I took to process this photo from what I was sharing with you on In the Field earlier this week. I have this scene here from kind of a really king's tide, very, very low tide out near the Scripps Pier in San Diego. And if you recall, in the field, I had several different shots of this as the tide was changing. I ended up liking one that was kind of in the middle of everything, where the tide had come up a little bit and gave some nice smoky feel around these rocks, but it hadn't covered everything yet. So there's a lot of good foreground and midground interest. Let me hit the backslash key. This is what the photo looked like out of camera. So overall, the capture itself came out very good, so there was not a whole lot of things to do, at least my version of a whole lot of things to do. I didn't spend 2 hours on this photo. I spent maybe 15 minutes. So let's take a look at the major steps here. I made some snapshots here in Lightroom along the way. So let's take a look at the basics. So here's the fundamentals, right? And so this is really the basic panel. I didn't change anything with white balance, played with it, liked what I had out of camera. Hit auto for a lot of the toning here, and I think the only thing I did was return contrast. For whatever reason, Lightroom's auto button always seems to reduce contrast in my scenes, and I tend to want to bring it back. I like having deeper shadows and pure blacks in the photo. And notice that dehaze was increased significantly, and that's important because I want to come back to that. That's kind of the theme of this photo, is embracing the haze. Again, I'm going to hit the backslash key, and look how much haze is out here, and certainly kind of kicking around the whole foreground. I go back to this snapshot, make sure we're still on that snapshot. There we are. That haze has been reduced out in the background. I kind of like it out there. It does add atmosphere, and it does make me remember this scene how it was, and it adds some depth. The more haze out here, this is going to retreat in our minds. So moving on, I rehazed the background. So let me bring up that, and you'll see that this has now got this haze again. How is that done? With a graduated filter. We'll see one right here. And notice I returned the haze down to -19, almost actually a little bit more than the dehaze. That's just how it ended up looking nice. And I just wanted to keep that softness out there and back there, keeping this crisp. Again, like the dehaze for the foreground, but I didn't want to do it everywhere. Sometimes haze is nice in our photos. Moving on, clarity in the rocks. So we'll see the rocks jump here. So I'm going to hit that one. Take a look at the jump and clarity. You can see I now have a second graduated filter that shows up. If I hover over that for a minute, let me hit the O key so I can get to a better overlay. You can see what's being affected using a color range mask here. So I sampled the color of these rocks, so this major orange type tone there. That's what's dialed in here, and really reduced it. I only wanted this to affect the rocks and not the cliffs. That's where the graduated filter is helping limit this to just the foreground. And from here, standard stuff. Brought the highlights down so we weren't blowing out and getting too hot on some of these rocks, and increased clarity. Okay, fourth thing that I did here, let's get the snapshots open, is the sky temperature. Now that haze was nice for the cliffs, but it kind of really, really washed out the sky. So added some temperature in here. We have a third graduated filter now. If I hover over that one, you'll see that's affecting the sky area, and it's just a pull down on the temperature slider. I did a different video about temperature controls and split tones, nudging color around. Look for that on the channel. I think it was up last week. You can check that one out for another example of how that all works. And last but not least was doing something with the oranges. So we'll see the oranges change here. And what did I do? Went into HSL and did some adjustments on the oranges, giving them just a little more saturation. I also visited the blue slider as well. That gave a little more blue tone in the ocean as well as the sky. You can see a before and after on that right here, before and after. The oranges are subtle, the blues are a little more prominent. So those were the major steps here. I did do a final tweak on this by sending it over to Luminar and back for just a tiny touch of glow. So I'll show you the final result. This is what was in Lightroom, and then a tiny touch of glow in Luminar. I have a different video on Luminar and how glow looks work there. If you can check that out, I go through the 3 major filters that Luminar has that covers the different glow looks. But that's the photo teardown. And a tip of the week is the dehaze or rehaze, depending on what you're doing with it. You don't always have to eliminate all the haze in your photos. Sometimes the haze can be good, and it can add the atmosphere that you may want for your photo and give a sense of depth. That'll do it for this week's in post video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, let me know somehow. Comments on the video below. Got questions about photography? Hit me up in the comments. You want to keep it private? You can visit my website and send me a message there. And I usually respond within a day or two. I really try hard to get to everyone's comments and questions. So keep them coming in. It's great to hear from folks. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport, and happy shooting.